I'm Hurley. I'm out of here making way for Keith in the Electric Ballroom. Great guest tonight. Iconic 80s rock photographer Mark Weiss is going to be stopping by the Electric Ballroom tonight. If you don't know who he is, and you have a copy of Bon Jovi's Slippery When Wet, he is the guy that shot the album cover for that. Yeah. It's actually the 30th anniversary of the PMRC hearings, which is, it kind of resulted in the whole explicit lyrics thing label that's on CDs. Yeah, and he took a bunch of photographs of that event. So he's going to be stopping by.
Hurry, cause it's going fast.
The Hollywood Vampires, that fun record that just came out, based on the drinking club that Alice started in the early 70s with cats like Keith Moon and Harry Nilsson. Some great covers on there. Alice paying homage. Wrote an original for the record. All My Drunk Dead Friends. Guest appearances by Brian Johnson. And as you just heard, Paul McCartney, Dave Grohl, Dennis Dunaway, Joe Perry, Johnny Depp. The list is endless. Just a fun, cool record. If it went under your radar at this point, you got to check it out. Keith Roth here in the Electric Ballroom. My co-host this evening will be Mark Weiss, longtime friend of the show. We'll get an update on his book, The Decade That Rocked, his new app, The Filthy 15, the website. Mark, it's 30 years since that whole PMRC thing went down, so he'll explain all about the new app and website. It'll be always fun having Mark in the house, always sharing great stories. So he'll be here in minutes from now. Let's get things rolling with Aerosmith. Hey, you're in the Electric Ballroom, and I'm joined by an old friend of the show, Mr. Mark Weiss, the iconic photographer.
Thank you very much, my old friend. We're old. We're decades worth into this business, aren't we, Keith?
We're getting into our 30s here, Mark. It's getting pretty scary.
30s, yeah. We started when we were 1, 2.
Yeah, maybe so.
Remember kindergarten when we were listening to like Black Sabbath and all that?
Well, you were a senior. I was a kindergarten at
That's
that point.
true.
But you're 39. I'm 26. I mean, it works out perfectly.
That's all good.
No, I mean, how was your summer, man? Did you have a great summer?
It was good. It was just I'm focusing on my book called The Decade That Rocked. It's coming out now. It's not 2 years now. We're in our 3rd year.
I did an interview in that book.
You did?
So now you just got like 3 sales from me saying that.
There you go. Yeah, so it's like, every time like I get another artist talking about the era and me, it's like, I was there, I did that.
Yeah.
And I look at the photos and I said, yeah, that was me, I did that. But, because I don't remember a lot of that stuff from back in the day. And like Rob Halford, who's doing the afterword.
Oh, he's doing the afterword?
Oh, he did.
Who's doing the forward?
D. Snyder.
D. Snyder,
yeah.
Okay.
And so just to hear him talking about times we had, again, that I don't remember.
And it's not like, you did a lot of drugs or anything like that.
It was that motorcycle accident when I was 12.
That's right.
It messed me
That's
up.
right.
But, it's why I'm a photographer.
Look, because you're always on top of it. I mean, I've known you literally since I was a kid. You were always at the shows. I mean, you were always working. You were working 6-7 nights a week, nonstop. I mean, you were there to capture all. It started with Zeppelin, right? Led Zeppelin, was that the?
Well, yeah, it started with Peter Frampton, actually.
Right.
That's my first concert I snuck into, but it was like crap photos because it was in the blue section at the Garden.
Which I remember all too well.
But I knew what I had to do. I knew how to get close. I knew how to, jump over the barricades, sneak in, the whole thing. Next time he played in '76, I went in there. I got really close and got some killer shots. And I started selling my pictures. And then
cutting lawns, getting your first.
Yeah, I got my first lawn. Well, it's going back a little bit.
Right.
I got my first camera when I was 14, mowing lawns. Some guy just said, "You want to mow my lawn for the summer? Here's this little Canon camera you could have." So I said, all right, what the hell? So that's how that started.
So let's get that. So Frampton was really the first show that you filmed. I mean, that you photographed.
Yeah.
Always around, man, which is
local
great.
bands.
Local bands, the whole shebang.
Any local bands that are out there. That
Want photos? MarkWeiss.com?
WeissGuyGallery.com.
WeissGuyGallery.com. I mean, you get a guy like Mark Weiss to shoot your band. How great is that?
Each guy kicks in a little bit of money, and it's, it's not a lot.
From the guy that did the Stay Hungry album cover, right?
My first one, and then I did The Last Command and Slippery When Wet, and what else did I do?
Maybe, I know you did.
Anthrax, I'm the Man.
Anthrax. Did you do Ozzy?
I did some inner sleeve stuff. A lot of his with illustrations, but
right. You're on the Osbourne television show.
Okay, I did Kelly Osbourne's album cover. Shut Up.
Right. I remember that.
But going back to Frampton, here I am at 16 shooting the Garden, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, how cool it would be to go backstage and meet these guys.
This is what you're thinking.
This is what I'm thinking.
Right.
And I'm looking in the photo pit, and I see Richard Aaron there, I believe it was, who did the Frampton Comes Alive album cover. And I look at my photos, and it looked like the same photo practically.
Really?
Mine was black and white, but that's what I knew, wow, maybe I could make some money out of this or do something. And then, ironically enough, the first rock star that I actually shot behind the scenes and got hired for was Peter Frampton in 1979.
How funny is that?
Publicity photos.
How funny is that?
And when I just saw Peter a few weeks ago, I said, I haven't seen him in like 35 years or whatever.
Has it been that long?
Well, since then,
Yeah.
since 79. I wrote a note to the manager, and they said, Peter wants to say hi, And then I asked him, and I had him sign some pictures for some charities I'm involved in.
Which is great thing that you do sometimes.
Lunch break, and I'm
lunch
also
break.
involved.
We had David Johansen do something for you that time.
Actually, you helped me start this campaign. Feels like the first time.
Is that right?
Yeah, that David Johansen was the first time.
The gig in Red Bank that we did.
That gave me the idea.
Okay, and he signed some pictures with the
He
fast
signed one or
lane.
two, and we did it. Yes,
It was great though because you went around the crowd that night, and people were, all the money went to
lunch break.
Lunch break. But it was great because you raised some money and went to a good cause, and it's a cool thing that started.
And then it
escalated.
The clock was going, and then I said, this is going to be cool. I can go to all these bands that I shot 30 years ago, and I turn it into, because that was the first time I shot David Johansen.
Right, at the fast lane.
At the fast lane, posed in front of the fast lane, the iconic sign for the fast lane. And so I'm like, all right, feels like the first time. And so I used that Foreigner song, and I just dug into my files. Anytime, first time I shot them. Now I take poetic license now. First time I shot Ozzy in the bathtub. First time I shot Ozzy on, live. So
there's a theme to it.
There's a theme to it, but it's really the first time I shot. So when Lindsey Buckingham would play, or Ace.
AC/DC.
Ace Frehley signed like the shot from '77 that I shot. That's
at the Garden. So you did you and Bob, both really good friends of mine. But
Bob Gruen, he's like kind of like someone that I've always looked up to.
Well, you knew his work.
Do. Yeah,
because he started in the '60s and he was the '60s and '70s.
He was the '60s guy. He was like the '70s guy.
'70s guy, right?
I'm the '80s guy.
'80s guy.
Yeah, I'm proud of it too.
He caught the tail end of the '67, and you caught like the tail end of the '70s. But but the bottom line is, both of you guys are still doing it.
We're still doing it.
You're still doing it. I mean, he's out there with Green Day. You're still doing like.
I was just out this weekend, a couple weekends ago,
Minnesota.
Minnesota and Hinckley at the Grand Casino, and it was like Bret Michaels headline one night, and Twisted Sister was the other, and Tom Kiefer was there, and Jack Russell from Great White.
This sounds like a good Minnesota night.
It was a good time. Yeah, it was a great place. It was awesome.
I love Minnesota, man. To me, that's a great city. Minneapolis.
Yeah.
St. Paul's pretty cool, but I was checking out your website before the filthy15.com.
Oh, we got to talk about that.
Yeah, so it's 30 years since the PMRC started all their BS, right?
Yep. A couple weeks ago, or last week, it was September 19th.
September 19th.
1985.
And they came up with a list of the Filthy 15, the 15 most disgusting, vulgar, corrupt your kid tunes.
Yeah, it was,
Black Sabbath was on it, and Motley Crue.
Yeah, the occult. There was a list of the occult, sexual.
It's like seeing movies. Like everything was rated. Yeah.
And they picked on D.
Twisted Sister.
And they didn't know.
Def Leppard, right?
Yeah, Def Leppard was on the list.
High and Dry, the song High and Dry.
Right.
It's a good rock, go-go anthem kind of tune, and they,
So
Political Housewives have a lot of time in there.
And Frank Zappa was there, and John Denver, and then they Al Gore was there, and with Tipper, because Tipper led the pack, the Washington Housewives, and they really thought they were gonna mess with D. Meanwhile,
they messed up Hollywood for a while, though. It did scare. Didn't it bring a big fear into the town for a while when that whole PMRC?
They took it real serious. I mean, but D went in there with his cut off T-shirt, and my picture of D was on his shirt, that on tour with. So he walks in with his dungaree jacket, he takes it off, he sits down, he takes the mic and moves it over next to his buddy Joe Gerber, that was
the manager.
Yeah,
I remember Joe.
Yeah, Joe was D's right-hand man. Joe was the guy that D confided in. He was like a scholar, and he kind of like helped him with, he was his right hand.
Right.
To Joe, he's like, he comes over, takes the mic, moves it over, then he sits down, and then he stands back up, takes the his notes, his speech, and it's folded in four on loose leaf paper. He pulls it out of his back pocket, and he starts, and he's his little notes. He starts addressing it, and then after a while he just took and put it down like he didn't. He just was going eye to eye, and Al just thought, he goes, "What does SMF stand for?"
And he said it.
And he said it straight out, the sick,
MF.
Yeah.
And
he goes, and Al goes, so, and that's a Christian group. And he goes, I'm a Christian, Mr. Gore. No, it stands for,
I'm an SMF card carrier member.
All right.
I have a card. I still have my card.
Right on.
Just to let it be known.
Okay, well, we can sell that on
I
eBay.
used to sneak in at 15 and see those guys at Zaffy's and Piscataway and the Fountain Casino and L'Amour's in Brooklyn.
Yeah,
I mean, they were the best band. Undoubtedly, the best band I've ever seen. Like, there would be nights when Twisted Sister is playing a club and there's another band playing the Enormo Dome. It got to the point where everybody's like, "God, hell, going to see let's go see Twisted Sister," because it was always such an experience. You never knew it was going to happen. Dee Snider was the best front man. He scared the crap out of you. He made you laugh. You never knew what you were going to get. I remember one time, my friends got really upset because he said the next time he comes back, he was going to burn a Cabbage Patch doll on stage. And these kids took it. My friends took it really seriously. And he didn't. And so at the end of the night, L'Amour's in Brooklyn, he always used to come out the back.
Right.
And they found out, and they went in the back, and D came out and was getting into his old kind of car at that point.
Right.
And he goes, "D, man, you said you were going to burn a Cabbage Patch doll," and he's like, "Oh," he goes, "I did." He goes, "I forgot. I'm sorry." He goes, "I really forgot about it." That's how serious.
Well, a funny story with me and D is. I was, shooting White Tiger. That was the band that I used to get my feet wet doing poses.
And now they're back.
They're back.
Yeah,
they're back. They kicked butt too, man.
Yeah, they're really good, man.
Good.
I had them here. I had Neil and Danny here not long ago, a few months, before they did their unveiling at the Pony. But yes, I know they were one of the biggest bands on the Strip. It was like them and Twisted Sister at that point, right?
Yeah, so I got my feet wet by shooting them in the studio. They're my guinea pigs. I never shot studio before, but they needed photos. I said, all right, let me give it a try. I used to go there and hang out and, try to pick up chicks, because that's where all the chicks were.
With White Tiger.
Yeah. When I was 18, the drinking age was 18. I was right out of high school. It was a blast. So we interviewed Neil for my book, and he told a story, which I didn't remember, but he goes, "You remember we went to," I said, "There's this band, Twisted Sister, I'm friends with." I said, "Yeah, I know Twisted Sister." Right. He goes, "Well, do you want to shoot them?" And I was shooting for Circus at this point, like 1980, 81. So I was already kind of on the way. I got my, I started doing assignments, shot Van Halen, I was shooting
You're getting paid to do your passion.
Yeah, so I was kind of a big shot. I was only 18, 19. And so Neil wanted to show me off, I guess, or something, And so he goes in there, because I can get you and meet me at the front, and Twisted Sister's playing. I'll get you to shoot him. So I have my cameras. He brings me backstage. He goes to Mendoza, I think, and he goes, "Yeah, I got this photographer, Mark Weiss," and I'm sitting there. He works for Circus Magazine, and he wants to shoot you tonight. He goes, "We don't care, I go, "Well," and he was all embarrassed. He's like, "Sorry, Mark, So I just took my cameras, put them away. I'm like, and D was back there looking. He just kind of looked away, whatever. Yeah. What happened later on was me and Neil were hanging out in the back, and all of a sudden, Neil went to the bathroom, and as he went to the bathroom, I was sitting there, and D starts talking to where me and Neil were.
In that vicinity.
Yeah, right there. They had the spotlight, because they were saying, "See those guys over there? Not see that guy over there?
Oh, not jumping up and down.
Not jumping up and down."
Yeah.
Neil was cool.
Yeah.
And I was Mr. Insecure, so I was not cool. I was just scared,
Well, that was the thing, at a Twisted Sister show when they did "It's Only Rock and Roll, but I Like It." Yeah, you jumping up and down, touching your nose, doing sit-ups, whatever it was, and everybody did it out of the fear of D calling you out.
Well,
and he called you out.
Well, no, what happened was they wanted to call Neil out.
Oh boy. So, and Neil's friends with D at this point.
But they were rivals.
Right.
So they were going to just pick on Neil. And Neil knew this. He heard that they were going to do this. So he ducked out, and I was left there. So D starts picking on me. Yeah. I left, man.
Yeah, you just walked out.
I walked out.
Yeah.
I went around the back. I came back.
But you're 18 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But ironically enough, 3 years later, D calls me up and says, "Do you want to do my album cover? Stay hungry." Yeah, which was my first one, and then
that was humongous. That's when their lives changed. Yeah. That's where we couldn't get to see them anymore, places that we used to, because they became an arena band. They were all over MTV, but that was kind of your luck in a sense too, because you would always grab these bands like Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet. I mean, those guys. They were just a regular, band with a deal, but they were an opening act. They were playing, places like Great Adventure, the Metro. It wasn't, they were out there. You did this record, and then it was like Beatlemania. I mean, it was so, because we all used to hang at Close Encounters, and if you remember, Dorothea, John's wife, used to work there, and Snake, and, the Twisted Sister guys used to hang out, like JJ, and would come out, and Zach Wilde was playing on, it was this really, when you look back on it, these documentary films, like Close Encounters is something, there's a big story there. But then all of a sudden, this guy becomes like, from a guy that's, he's on MTV, he's an opening act. He was like the biggest thing in the planet. It was like Beatlemania.
It was.
And you shot the album cover. You're almost like a good luck charm.
Well, that's what I always said. I said any band that I did their album covers for went gold and platinum, but I didn't know. It seemed like everyone.
When are you doing my album cover?
Yeah, well, let's do it.
All right.
But I mean,
we went wood. You didn't shoot that one.
Oh well.
No.
Last Command. I mean, that went gold. I think. It was
Wasp.
one of Wasp's biggest ones. I did the Danzig with the mother in it. I did the inner sleeve.
Right.
Open it up.
Yeah, that was a great album too.
I mean, Anthrax. I'm the Man.
All these were huge records. Huge
So
records. Skid Row, right?
Skid Row, even Britney Fox. I mean, that went gold. So it's like there's got to be some kind of luck there.
I like Britney Fox's greatest hit. No, but I mean, and the Skid Row record, I mean, like that was, to me, that was bizarre because, these are guys that, they're drinking buddies, we're all, all of a sudden, Snake finally gets a band together with these guys, and next thing it's like them off to the races. I was in the Village in some leather shop, buying a leather jacket, not like some bondage place. Yeah. Next thing I hear 18 Life on the radio, and I'm like,
it's a monster. It's a monster.
It was so surreal to see all that happen, and you did that album cover, right?
Well, I actually did the back.
The back. But you were involved in
the whole thing.
Was that Sanchez's studio at the back?
Yeah, we built that whole, that whole set.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's the same place I did Slippery and Wet, the same place.
Unbelievable. Play some music right now. It's Keith Roth along with Mark Weiss. Let's do something from the Ramones' Mondo Bizarro record. Joey calling out Tipper and crew.
Hey, everybody. It's Joey Ramone here. The only way you can truly be happy is if you're listening to the Electric Ball.
New York Dolls here in the Electric Ballroom. Keith Roth with my co-host, iconic photographer, Mark Weiss. Now, how did you get involved with the whole lunch break thing?
Lunch break, they were just having a gala, and, I was just going into the city, and I saw they were having a gala. Like, what's going on there? And then I ended up finding out. I said, well, if you need any photos, he says, well, actually, we have this guitar of John Bon Jovi that he signed. Mm-hmm. I said, well...
he has his own place, too, right?
Yeah, Soul Kitchen.
Soul Kitchen, right, okay.
That was before that. He actually used...
Come on, there can't be any competition of trying to feed people, so it's all good.
That's true. It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just said, well, do you want a photo to go with that? We'll get John to sign it, whatever, So we got the picture, and we kind of ralphed them off together, and then that's how I became involved with Lunch Break. Mm-hmm. Now, then I got involved last year with Light of Day. I raised
That's a beautiful
more
charity,
than $30,000 for them, for a bunch of photos, because I got all these photographs signed by the artist and by me, and they're limited edition. Whenever I go backstage, I get 6 done.
Right.
So it's worth 6 auctions. And
the prices could vary.
Yeah, it starts at $400, and they go up to like the one shot of Aerosmith I shot. First time I shot him was in 1976 at the Garden, and it's all 5 of them because I couldn't get that close. Mm-hmm. But it's a good shot of all 5 of them.
Especially 76 Aerosmith at their best.
Right. It was the first time, and it was the first time they played the Garden.
Oh, really? As a headliner, or just in general?
No, yeah.
Wow.
And they all signed it.
That's great.
When they played Atlantic City, so I have 6 of those, and those went for like $3,000.
Of course, yeah.
So anyway, I raised like $30 for them, and now I'm involved with this, which is amazing organization. They just got their foundation now called Rocket, and they're tied in with Count Basie. And Bruce is he's the founder of it, who I became friends with over the last year.
Springsteen. Well, just somebody that's listening in Duluth, Minnesota.
Oh, that's
right
true.
Now.
That's true.
I mean, everybody that's listening on the rad right now.
I can't pronounce his last name. No, it's not Bruce Springsteen. Anyway, he started this foundation, and I said, well, the next charity that with all the photos is we're going to go through them. And what they do is they have these kids that they're involved in this program, and they're really they're doing these four shows a year at the Count Basie.
Did they just do that one?
They did the Tommy
one, because the guys from Rock the Farm, we did that show for the CFC Foundation, and then I know Carmine and Ricky Bird
went
to be a part of that. Yeah.
Yep. And Stephen Van Zandt was there, and he jammed at the end. And Maureen, his wife, she helped with. She was the narrator, and she helped with her sister. Not choreography, but clothes.
Oh, so he's involved as well.
Well, She was involved.
Okay.
Stephen was there just for moral support.
Right, and he came out and jammed at the end.
He came out and jammed, and it was Bobby Bandiera's Vanguard Award. So Stephen gave the speech first, and then to introduce Southside, who gave the speech to introduce Bobby. So it was kind of like
that's great.
And Stephen Van Zandt was the first Vanguard Award for the Count Basie last year.
Okay.
So he already saw what was going on. He met, and they played with the Rocket kids. The foundation. The Rocket. Bruce's not Springsteen,
right?
The Italian guy.
Yeah.
And he liked what was going on. And Steven's just a big fan of history and rock and kids.
Yeah, helping
and
kids out, especially. Yeah,
there's this great synergy going on, and I'm involved too. Very much so. I love watching kids. I love shooting kids. So I started shooting the kids, looking like rock stars. So I'm taking these young kids, anywhere from 8 years old to 17.
They're loving it.
Cap.
And do they realize like your history as well, like who they're being photographed by?
They have a gallery up on the wall that Bruce put up.
So that's really cool, man.
So that's my newest thing. So
a great. I mean, so how could people learn more about that? I'm sure there's a. Did you say the website?
It's rocketlive.org.
Rocketlive.org. And so obviously the next one, so it's
the next one they're doing. They do 4 years. So the next one they're doing is the British invasion, and they're doing Sergeant Pepper in its entirety.
Wow, that's great. It's going to be at the Macy again?
Yeah. And they pack them in. They get 800,000 people,
A great place to do it as well.
Yeah,
It's just historical. Speaking of, I remember the one time, Tom Allom, the legendary producer. Tom Allom, he did Black Sabbath,
right.
Judas Priest, Budgie, Cat Stevens even. But I remember he was working with us, and he came to Red Bank, and he was like, when he saw the Count Basie Theater, I mean, he kneeled down and kissed, because of his love and passion about knowing about that theater. Growing up in England, he was like, they know Red Bank, New Jersey because of the Count Basies as well.
And I shot B.B. King there in '97.
Well, he used to do a yearly thing there, right?
Yeah.
But you got him
I got him
one of his first years.
I actually want to do a series of everyone. I have him in the door backstage, so I'm doing a series of everyone standing where he was, and he's with his guitar, Lucille. So I want to get Brian Setzer there with his guitar, and George Thorogood with his guitar. Same pose, just a
Frampton
homage. Frampton when he plays.
Sure. Yeah, because he usually he hits the bass. Yeah, I saw Warren Haynes there. He'd be a great guy to get to, right?
Anyone that connects with him,
Who after all these years of doing this, and you've been through the meat grinder with all this stuff, who haven't you done that's on your list? Is there anybody on your list?
Yeah, of course.
Is there still?
Well, there's the Stones.
Yeah.
I mean, I've shot them live every tour since '78, '79. But I mean, I'd love to hang backstage and just be a fly on the wall,
Getting Keith
and Zeppelin too, or not, Jimmy or Robert.
You never did those guys, huh?
Not backstage, It's like,
getting that up, because I know, with Sabbath, with Circuit Dio. I mean, you've always had a strong connection to the Black Sabbath.
Sabbath,
whether it was Ozzy or Dio or Tony or all those guys.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that you never got Page. All those times.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
how about Bowie? Did you ever do Bowie?
No, Bowie would be a good one. I wish I was there for Ziggy. I mean, Mick Rock. That's another one that
that's kind of his staple. He has Queen. That Diamond Shot and all that stuff. Some incredible stuff.
Yeah.
Keith Roth along with Mark Weiss here in the Electric Ballroom. We're going to play some Bowie for you now, followed up with Queen. Motel right there here in the Electric Ballroom. Keith Roth and my co-host, Mark Weiss, iconic rock photographer. Now, with this filthy 15, 30 years, let's get back to the PMRC.
Right.
You were out in California. You were shooting all this stuff when it was happening, right?
Yeah, well, the US Festival was the beginning of it, really.
Right.
Quiet Riot was was it Quiet Riot or Motley was the opener. And I just found pictures when I was going.
Priest played at Scorpions, right? Van Halen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But I just found some pictures of Motley walking to the stage, with bottle of Jaeger, Vince, walking down. Things that I just never saw before, because the black and white. I never developed my black and white photos because they pay like $25. Color you get 100.
Oh yeah.
So I would just take my rolls of film and just throw it in a bag. So
why'd you even buy black and white if that was the?
Because it was cheaper, and
just to have it, just in case.
Yeah, no, I don't, it was cheaper. I like shooting film. I always went through all my film.
Do you still do film? No. You miss that? The process,
No.
No, you don't.
Oh,
you like you.
Yeah, I like instant gratification.
You embrace the digital.
Yeah, I did fight it, but it's I started working for a weekly magazine in Germany, so I had no choice, and I'm like, well, I don't have to worry about going through the film scanner. I don't have to go drop it off at the lab and do clip tests and this and that. I mean, what a process with Polaroids. You used to sit there and used to rub the Polaroids and look at them and show the band. Now you just take it. You used to do a light meter, but it's none of that anymore. But where it's time consuming.
No, why do so many kids that I personally know? Maybe it's just the little clique that I know of kids, but they all have Polaroid cameras now. Have you noticed that?
Oh,
there's like a research. Maybe it's just a hip thing to have, but everybody's got their walking around, and the Polaroids that come out are like half the size.
Yeah.
Not like.
I think they started selling them in Urban Outfitters or something.
Is that what it is?
Little novelty shops, maybe Spencer's, and
it just seems like all these kids have Polaroids and they're snapping to themselves, and they watch it pop out, and it's like a whole experience for them.
Now they can hold it. I mean, the thing is, my kids, it's like their scrapbook is on the internet. But what if one day the internet's going to blow up?
Like Walking Dead?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's it.
Like
yeah, the internet is going to blow up. Yeah.
And all your memories are going to be lost. No one's, printing anything out really. Everything's on in the electric system. A
good example of that is I know somebody who had a 5,000 CD collection, right? Spent like years just importing everything into his iTunes until the point like, the room is clear. He sold all of his discs for $500, and then backed it up on 2 hard drives. Well, wouldn't you know? And all those hard drives went, and now he's got nothing. I felt bad for this because he was one of those guys that started as a kid collecting music.
Right.
And then,
right.
But exactly what you just said. Think about how that feels. He had on a hard drive, another hard drive. The computer blew up. The hard drive went, like, popped it in, ting, zapped, and then...
I double things up now, and I keep
triple
them in our house. Once a month, I, back up my digital images, and I put them in my, someone else's house.
Well, you got it. Even though I've been through the process of a movie, and I've seen how before they even go on to the next thing, how they quadruple everything, and then as far as that goes, because there's no processing anymore. Just the fear. I mean, think about a $25,000 shot like that.
Yeah.
I still like to touch physical product. And if you notice, the sales of vinyl and CD sales have gone up dramatically compared to what it was.
Now, Jack's, if you go to Jack's Music at Red Bank, all my photos are all around there.
I saw.
And,
you're everywhere, man.
But the vinyl is like every week I go in, there's people are dropping them off, and people are going through them, and they're having fun looking at album art. Album art, perfect example. Like I was just with it.
My kid on vinyl only. Don't even
really
nothing but vinyl. That's it. If it's not vinyl, it doesn't count. If it's not vinyl, I love that.
I was a perfect example of the censorship and how the PMRC affected these artists. I was just at this concert with Tom Kiefer from Cinderella. I asked him some questions because on the site it's going to have it's called After the Hearings, and they're all video clips of the artists talking about the songs or their albums or their views on the censorship and the PMRC. So I interviewed Brad Whitford. He's talked about Walk This Way and Kitty in the Middle and what that meant, and that slipped through when DMC did it. Mm-hmm. So that slipped through. You had to be clever about certain phrases and whatnot. Tom was saying that when he did Night Songs, his first record. I mean, he was a kid. He didn't know if it was going to be big. Got a deal. Yeah. So the record company was like, well, the PMRC just passed this law that they're labeling stickers, and we're afraid if we print the lyrics, because Tom said, I want my lyrics on there. He was a big fan of the Stones. We used to read, lyrics on your album.
Of course. So we're all part of that generation, yeah.
So he wanted his lyrics. He's the lyricist. He wanted people to read his lyrics. So the record company said, well, we might not get in Walmart and this one, and we don't want the label. So he's like, he didn't sell 3 million records yet. He's just getting out of the box. So he went along with it, of course, and it's sold like 3 million records. But he just was talking about how it kind of sucked.
Well, it interfered with your art.
They didn't put lyrics in it because of the PMRC.
The fear.
The fear. And then 2 weeks later, Bon Jovi released "Slippery When Wet," and I did the
album cover with the voluptuous,
and that's really no big deal.
Yeah, that's like not even something that would faze anybody now.
And then again, Polygram, the same label, said, Walmart's not going to carry it. They printed up 500,000 copies already. They burned, and then John said, Mark, I'm coming up. I don't know what we're doing. Just be ready. So he comes up and he's like, black plastic bag. You have a spray bottle? I said, yeah. He goes, just put it up there and spray it on there. I'm like, what's he doing, He comes in there for 5 minutes. He just writes with his fingers, slippery when wet. He didn't even wait for me to take the picture. Just take a picture and send that to the record company. That's it.
Wow.
And I sent it to him, and that was it. So it's like, here is like the second biggest selling record of the 80s.
Yeah, I refer to it as the Sgt. Pepper of hair metal.
Okay.
I mean,
I don't think he would like to be referred to be like that. But.
Well, I mean, that was the times. Come on. I wouldn't say that now, but I mean, for that time period.
I'm kidding,
I mean, he had big hair. I mean,
listen, he was the poster boy for hair metal.
I mean, it's what it is.
But a spade,
Right. I mean, you can't.
Wherever you evolve to is fine.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's not where you're at currently, but that record was like, when I say it was like Beatlemania, it was like it had that impact on the kids of Sgt. And their fans have grown with them. Because a lot of those bands, they're playing clubs still, or they go on tour, they do Weekend Warrior stuff. I mean, Bon Jovi became like a corporation.
Music, music,
They were a little bit different, but
Yeah, so that censorship again, that had something to do with it. They didn't get labeled, and they sold all those millions of records, what have you. But then Anthrax, I'm the Man. They didn't label. I don't think they got labeled, but like
it was almost cool though after a while to get labeled because you almost wanted to get it.
They wanted to get labeled, and then they sold more records.
Right.
And even today, like this new guy that I've been shooting, Machine Gun Kelly, he's an amazing guy. He's definitely going to be taken off. He's got a label on it. And it doesn't affect the sales. I mean, people are just they
don't even think about that anymore. You look back at certain things and you realize, like people were saying how crazy and scary the Rolling Stones looked. Like, and now you look at those photos from 1965 and 66 and you're like, really? You know what I mean? Parents wish that their daughters would bring home guys that looked as clean cut as Keith Richards did back in the 60s back then. It's just the product of the times. With the PMRC, the Filthy 15, well, you have a new app or something like that?
Well, right now the app was just released last week.
Okay.
And because we commemorated the 30th anniversary, I figured, what the heck? I went there with D. I was if you look at some of the video clips, you can see me in the background walking behind Frank Zappa, and, the background with all the short-haired photographers, and there's me poking my head out, taking pictures. So I have all these...
Oh, no, it was funny when the whole thing was going on, and we saw, all the news coverage that it was getting, and then I'm like, hey, look, there's Mark Weiss, man. There's Mark right there.
Yeah.
And we used to bug you, like, places like Close Encounters of Bird. I remember you explaining what was going on at that point, But you were there.
I was there, and 30 years later, D's still doing his thing.
He doesn't look too much different either, does he?
Yeah, he's doing really good. Yeah, he looks good.
What about that feud with him and Paul Stanley? It's crazy stuff.
He's just defending his band and just calling, putting up the facts.
Crazy.
He's very passionate about it.
Well, I know you're close with both of them, so it's hard for you to comment on it. Realistically, if Dee Snider and Paul Stanley are in a ring, I mean, I would have to...
Dee challenged. I mean, pretty much challenged them.
To like a sing-off. But I mean, I would think, let these two guys get in a ring, Paul Stanley, Dee Snider, pay-per-view, let them go at it physically for like 3 rounds, charge $100, donate all the proceeds to a good charity. I know who will win. Or I know I'd bet on. I think.
And Ace could be the judge.
Yeah, that would
Ace
be
and
fun.
Tommy.
Ace and Tommy could be the judge, and they could go at it. And that's part of the. Let's also put that on the card. But donate all the proceeds to charity. That'd be a fun thing,
Love Kiss.
When they were first 6 records.
77. I mean, I'm just thinking about that was the band that I photographed. I couldn't believe the photographs I got. And I was just so excited about it. So that's my memory.
Hey, they were great.
I've
the Elder was.
I've toured with them in the '80s. That was like one of the first photographers to shoot them without the makeup with Vinny and.
Vinny Vincent,
yeah. And I just took.
He should have stayed as the staff songwriter at Happy Days. That's when he was the staff songwriter.
I didn't know that.
He should have just hung doing that thing. Hey, years ago when Gene Simmons used to do the Electric Ballroom all the time, he used to say all those Unmasked records weren't worth buying except Revenge.
Revenge was a good record. Well,
I'm putting you on the spot here because I know you work with the Kiss guys, but being very diplomatic. Let's go back to the good old days.
Hey, this is Paul Stanley's Kiss, and you're listening to the Electric Ballroom with Keith and Amy.
Keith Roth with my co-host, iconic rock photographer, Mark Weiss. Well, Mark is still hanging. We'll be back after we pay some bills. Don't touch that dial. Well, one thing you can always count on here in the Electric Ballroom every week is something by Joe Strummer. Keith Roth with my co-host this evening, legendary rock photographer, Mark Weiss. Why don't we do a giveaway?
Okay.
Because, you got 6 prints of the up on the Filthy 15. 6 great shots.
So if you go to thefilthy15.com.
Right.
It's just a little site now, which if you go there, you can download the app, which is also called the Filthy 15. So you can actually go.
It's on Apple too.
Yeah, you can go to
iTunes,
the Apple store, and download it. It's free, and you'll see all this content and these interviews, like with Brad Whitford, with Bret Michaels.
Speaking of Brad Whitford, though, you should get that cover, though, because isn't he doing a Whitford St. Holmes album?
Yeah.
I think it's they're releasing a single next month, right?
Yeah, just
how cool. Did you talk about you doing the cover?
Well, no, because probably Brad's son's going to do it, because Brad, last time I was out with Aerosmith, Brad's son was like the tour photographer. I remember Brad's son when he was like a little kid. Now he's got my gig. It's all cool.
I can't wait to hear that record. I was just did that thing with St. Holmes out on that Monsters of Rock cruise. Mm-hmm. I mean, that guy.
Derek, but I shot Derek when they played with Ted Nugent in '78 in the Giant Stadium.
With Mahogany Rush, Aerosmith, and Journey.
Were you there?
I was there.
Wow.
Was it 78 or 79?
78.
I thought it was 79, but you might be right.
No, it could be 79.
The first 3 concerts for me, my first show was Led Zeppelin, 9 years old, 1977, the Garden in June.
I was there.
My brother had to take me because my parents were going to a wedding, and he had committed to taking me in February or to watch me. And he's like, either take them to the show or we stay home with them. So that's how I went to my first concert. And my second one was at the PNC, Garden State Arts Center. Meatloaf and the Good Rats.
I was there.
Remember Meatloaf and the Good Rats?
Yeah, of course.
Good Rats opened the show?
Yeah, John Gatto.
Right.
The cat guitar.
Pepe Marcello, Pepe and I mean they were great. And then Yes in the Round, and then it was so when you're that young you don't forget. But I do remember Giant Stadium, Aerosmith, Ted Nugent, Journey, and Mahogany Rush.
I think it was 78.
Okay, no, I was there.
Because the first picture I got published at Circus was June 78, I believe, and the Beatles were on the cover, and it was a centerfold to Steven Tyler. When I opened it up, I started. God,
you're crying.
So my name on there.
Yeah, I mean that's a big thing. That's like getting a gold record or something like that. You feel weird that like when people think of rock photographers. I mean, you're in that list, man. The top 5. I mean, you have to be. You have to be.
I still pinch myself.
Yeah, but the great thing about you, Mark, I've said it. You'll see at the Brighton Bar one night, the Stone Pony. You'll see at the Giant Stadium the next night. You'll be in LA the next night, and that's why you're working, and it's still exciting to you after all this time.
It is. I love it. What else am I going to do? Mow lawns again?
Yeah. Well,
so if you go to filthy15.com. You go there. You hit there's a great little Jimmy Swaggart when he got busted with a prostitute.
Right.
There's a little
Miracle Man.
Yeah. There's a little video clip that takes you can see and watch it and laugh, and then that kind of sets the stage. A little description of the PMRC for anyone that forgets or the youngins that never heard of it. They should know what was going on. So it's a little history lesson, and then they go there. They click the button, sign up, and then they go and there's a gallery of photos, and there's also gallery of photos of fans back in the day from all those shows.
That's very cool.
Can you imagine these kids? I'm going to have a contest down the road of if you can prove that that's you in the crowd going nuts, then you get a Weiss guy photo,
All right. Well, someone had a photograph of me. That was it. Remember when they destroyed the seat covers of Judas Priest?
Oh yeah.
I was front row. And another photographer, he has a picture of me front row.
Really?
Yeah, it was great.
I like to see that.
But I also in the Lemoore's book too. There's a Lemoore's book coming out in December.
Yeah.
There's a photo of me and Lips from Anvil.
Wow.
And I was looking at this photo. I'm like, really? I'm like, oh, I'm glad you got it. Yeah, please put it in there.
Nice.
But
Let's use that for your book when you do yours.
well, I mean, I just didn't. I completely forgot about it. And the next thing hey, is it cool? We put this in this Lemoore's book. I'm like, absolutely. It's kind of like, you forget all those things that you did or posed for. You never know where they're going to show up someday. You probably know that. Pictures that you probably didn't even think, meant anything at the time, all of a sudden became...
I keep finding pictures. That's why I'm prolonging this book, because I keep finding little gems and jewels. I'm like, geez, that's...
Yeah, so that's not coming out this year, huh?
This is not going to come out till fall 2016 now.
Okay. It was originally supposed to come out in the summer of 2015?
Out last year,
Right.
But, I started doing these interviews, and I got Peter Frampton to do an interview talking about me that day that I shot him at his house.
Did you get Cheap Trick in there?
Yeah, we interviewed Rick.
Because I know he was on your list.
I did get him. Still waiting for Alice and Gene and Paul, and I just saw Ace, and Ace said he's going to do an interview with me.
So you want to wait till you get Alice, Gene, and Paul?
Get Alice and Ace.
Well, Alice is pretty easy.
Yeah, he said yes. It just you
connecting
the handlers, and you got to make sure you find the right time, and this.
Sit down and do a chat.
Yeah, but So you go to filthy15.com, hit the little sign up button. And then you'll go to the second page, and then you'll see a gallery of photographs. There's 6 photos up there. There's Dee Snider at the Senate hearings. There's Angus Young back from 1981, I think. Him smoking a cigarette backstage. And then there's a shot of King Diamond from Merciful Fate. These are all people that were on the Filthy 15. Then we got Halford. Blackie Lawless, of course, and Tony Iommi.
Which is such a great shot of Iommi. Twisted Sister, of course.
So the contest is going to be...
I got a good idea for the contest, because I know one song in my head.
Yeah.
It was a song by Black Sabbath, actually.
Okay.
A song that was on the Filthy 15 list.
Yeah.
Call up 732-681-3890, 732-681-3890, and tell us what that song from Black Sabbath is on the Filthy 15, and you're going to win one of these prints.
You go to the site and you pick the picture you want, whatever one you want, whether it's Tony Iommi or AC/DC or
Motley Crue.
Sister. Motley Crue's another one.
You pick it if you're one of the. We're going to give away 6, because there's 6 prints up there, right?
Yeah.
So we'll give away 6, and then they could pick whoever it is. If you're a winner, if they know the answer to that, and then
sign it.
Can they have a preference if you sign it or not?
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
But I sign it in the corner. I date it, a little more valuable. I sell the pictures on my website, weissguygallery.com. They start at $300 and go to $1,500.
So this is like a $300 gift.
This one's 8.5 by 11. I usually sell them. really sell that size, so it's a special size I got.
Filthy15.com.
Yeah.
See the 6 photos.
Download the app.
Because
if you download the app, you get updates whenever we have a new interview. They're going to be way cool. I mean, they're going to be.
You're a great interviewer, man. I've watched a lot of your interviews.
Thanks,
I've seen some really great stuff. And then, if you're a winner, you get to get one of these 6 prints, and Mark will sign it for you. Well, Mark, thanks for coming down, bro. Always a pleasure to see you. By the way, 732-681-3890. Real quick, Weiss Guy.
WeissGuyGallery.com. TheFilthy15.com.
Okay, people, check that out. And what do you want to play right now? Whatever song you want to hear.
How about something Twisted Sister?
WeissGuyGallery.com, TheFilthy15.com. Iconic rock photographer, my co-host this evening, Mark Weiss, here in the Electric Ballroom.
See you.
All right, everybody, listen up. This is Steve Snyder, dare I say, from Twisted Sister. And you listen to my bestest buddies, or Big Toes, Amy and Keith, on the Electric Ballroom. Yeah!
And congratulations to the people that picked Black Sabbath Trashed, which was on the Filthy 15. And thanks for Mark Weiss coming down and hanging out tonight. We're all looking forward to reading his book, The Decade That Rocked. Check out the website, thefilthy15.com. Download the app. Mark, thank you once again for hanging out. Always welcome here in the Electric Ballroom. And I'll reach that time of the evening. Got to start thanking the sponsors. Top of the list for me, Fetish in Asbury Park. The ultimate hippest rock and roll clothing store right in our neck of the woods. 644 Cookman Avenue. Prices you could afford. Musicians getting discounts, carrying lip service and blank denim. Iron Fist, Hell Bunny, some incredible concert T-shirts from Slade to T-Rex, Hanoi Rocks, Clash, Cheap Trick. Awesome selection of T-shirts, stagewear, streetwear, dancewear, clubwear, footwear. Fetish is great, and they have it all. Right in Asbury Park, 644 Cookman Avenue. Tell Diane the Electric Ballroom sent you. Want to thank MVD Music Video Distributors, the company that never sleeps. They released the Soaked in Bleach, the Kurt Cobain documentary that will lead to much speculation. Salad Days, which is coming out, a documentary on the decade of punk in D.C., covering 1980 to 1990. They put out the Johnny Thunders documentary. They're going to be releasing the Joe Strummer documentary, I Need a Dodge, with Joe when he had his self-imposed exile in Spain after the Clash imploded. Can't wait to see that. That's coming out October 16th. Bobblehead dolls from Brother Wayne Kramer, Handsome Dick Manitoba, James Williamson, the Bougie Boy, Devo, Bobblehead doll as well. So much stuff going on in their world, and you can see what's going on in their world over at MVDB2B.com, MVDB2B.com. Always thanking BB King's in New York City's Times Square, a great place to hear and see live music, and they'll keep you abreast over at BBKingsNYC.com. In the hot seat with me next week, Jeff Rouse from Guessing Game just released their second record, which is awesome. Their first one was amazing, Holy Crow. This one is equally as good, and also Jeff is working on that project with Duff McKagan, with Izzy Stradlin, so maybe we can get the 411, the whole dealio on what's going on with that. So Jeff Rouse will be my co-host next week here in the Electric Ballroom. Till next Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, Keith Roth saying, have a good time all of the time. Live it up.